If you clicked on this video to get traditional parenting books, like What to Expect When You're Expecting or Dr. Spock or something like that, then this is not the right video for you. However, if you do want to see some parenting books that are not conventional, that have truly shaped the way that I live my life as a parent, then keep watching. If you're new here, please go ahead and subscribe. Don't forget to like this video, click the notification bell to make sure that you're notified whenever I upload a new video. And with all that said, let's get started. My name is Julie. I'm an occupational therapist, a mom of 2 little ones, and I love reading about parenting because, you know, I didn't really know what I was doing. And that's one way to figure it out. So I have a long list of books, and I don't want to intimidate you all by giving you this whole manifesto of all the books that you need to read to become a parent or be a parent. Of course, that's not the case. What I want to talk about are the books that really left an impression on me. So whilst I have actually started a lot of parenting books and maybe not finished them, I want to really focus on the parenting books that I loved so much that I gave to other people. So the first book that left a real impression on me was a book called Simplicity Parenting. I will have a little screenshot of it right here. This book I read on Kindle, and I think I also downloaded it as an audiobook. I gifted it to friends. I gifted it to expecting parents. It was such a breath of fresh air, and almost if you'd read no other parenting specific book, I would say read this one. I just loved the minimalist approach, the idea of just coming back to what is really important with our kids. And I read it a few years ago, so I almost want to go back and read it again, or just skim through and see kind of the lessons. But it is such a great book. It made me feel like I had tools to be a better parent. It just really solidified my philosophy as a parent, and I was like, yes, this is the type of parent that I want to be. So Simplicity Parenting, definitely. Whilst all of these books are not necessarily ranked in an order, but that is like close to number 1, if not number 1. I loved it. Then the next book that I truly remember actually loved, listened to multiple times and gifted to friends was Bringing Up Bebe, which is kind of an unconventional parenting book because it's written by an American who moves to Paris and has 2 kids, I believe, and she's away from home and she's learning a whole new culture. I think she starts off with 1, and then as the book progresses she ends up having twins, if I remember correctly. And it was told like a story. It was like her story, but it's also interwoven with parenting and feeding kids food and teaching them how to be French, even though she's not French. But I just loved that book so much. I know it had some controversy around it, but I really enjoyed it, and I gifted it to friends, and I definitely recommend it. It is something really nice to listen to because it's more of a story, even though it's true, and it is just, there's so much thinking points in there for me and wisdom that made me reflect on my own life. And something that I really took away from that book is the French way of structure. They call it le cadre. It's like the structure that you create, and within that, children have a lot of freedom and flexibility, but there's a structure, and they are very familiar with rules and boundaries, which if you go into parenting thinking that you can kind of just be laissez-faire, let's keep with the French analogy about things, it's, at least for me, and I think for a lot of people, it doesn't work. Kids need to know the limits, just like adults do. You know, if we had no rules in society, people would just do whatever they wanted and we wouldn't be able to live cohesively. So I really like that from that book. I know not everybody wants to be so structured in their parenting, but I don't know, I wouldn't be able to do it without structure, and I feel like we could even use more structure. That's why you'll see on my channel that I do a lot of like organizational videos and routines and timetables and, you know, scheduling and that kind of stuff, because you need it. You need to know where you're supposed to go next, and kids need that too. Then kind of going on a totally different genre into science, I really enjoyed this book called The Biology of Belief by Dr. Bruce Lipton. If I remember correctly, it's a short book. I listened to it. I think it was like a 3-hour audiobook. Tip with audiobooks, if you need to get through them a little quicker, make the speed just a little bit faster. So like 1 1/4 speed or 1 1/2 speed. Slowly train your brain, and soon you won't even realize that you are listening to a book just that much faster. The only way you'll be able to tell is that the music goes like funky because it's just a little bit too quick. But that's one way to get through audiobooks, just a little bit quicker. And it strengthens your auditory learning, but that's a separate conversation. Anyway, so with the biology of belief, it goes into sort of science, cells, DNA, how we can train things, how the first, I believe, 7 years of life basically auto-program you for the rest of your life and your subconscious. Super important, and makes me think, like, now I have a 5-year-old, goodness, I have to be really intentional with everything that I provide for him or feed him, like intellectually or emotionally. Especially I've got like 2 more years, something like that. So I really recommend that book if you want to get into more technical things, if you find that interesting. It's quick and it was really informative and I really enjoyed it. Then another book that I loved, which is also science-based, you would consider it evidence-based parenting, which is not that common and really should be in terms of the books that we consume or that are popular. You know, we should be really looking at what is science and research telling us. So anyway, let's go back. The book that I loved with regards to this was called Expecting Better, which has also become very popular. It's written by Emily Oster. She is an economist. I believe she worked at the University of Chicago for a little while. She might have worked at Harvard as well. Very, you know, reputable intellect. And she got pregnant and decided to research what actually works. I remember from reading that book, I read it in between my first and second child. So I started to implement some of the things from that book with the second baby. And one of the things that I was really interested in was like how to shorten labor, because my intention was always to have a unmedicated birth, actually for both of my children, but especially for the second one. And I wanted to make sure that the birth went by as quickly as possible, knowing what it was like the first time around. And I remember in that book, it spoke about how yoga, prenatal yoga, was one of the only things that they found in a small study that helped to speed up labor. I don't know, I did prenatal yoga the second baby and not the first one. And my labor was like less than 4 hours from when I woke up with contractions to when I had the baby. So, you know, N of 1 over here, but it definitely worked for me, but also second baby. So it's not really that's not a true science experiment. But I really enjoyed that book. I feel like it can help ease anxiety. It can help you think about what actually is happening. And I gifted that book to a lot of people too. I thought it was really, really helpful. She's written a second book called Cribsheet, which I have not read yet, but I'm sure it's just as good. I've read a little bit of it, but because I'm not like actively having young babies, I haven't read it yet, but I do plan to, and I feel like it'll be great as well. Okay, so I'm sensing a theme in terms of the science, but the next book that I really loved, I love them all, I guess. I mean, I've read a lot of parenting books and these are definitely my top ones. I'm like going through my phone and looking at my Audible subscription and seeing what I liked. But the next one that I really loved was Brain Rules for Baby. I felt like I think it's written by a neuroscientist, and he had a son and he was like, okay, this is a whole new chapter in life. And he took it as an opportunity to research. He might have been involved in child psychology and brain things before, but he really dove deep once he had his own child. And this, again, like just teaches you how to understand kids' development in such a easily digestible way. I listened to it on Audible. I also bought the book. I know this is a book that people kind of study a little bit to really understand their kids. Also bought this for a lot of people because I felt like it was really helpful and I really enjoyed it. So definitely not biology of belief. Brain Rules for Baby. That's what you gotta do. Sorry, lots of B words. Tea break. I can't read all these books without a cup of tea, right? Obviously. Duh. Okay, then a classic of modern parenting is Janet Lansbury's work, and specifically No Bad Kids was the one that I read. I think she has a couple of them. I think I've read them all, but the one I remember specifically was No Bad Kids. And especially when my first child started becoming a toddler, started pushing boundaries, started kind of requiring discipline or whatever you want to call it, you know, I really wanted to avoid traditional disciplining like naughty steps and timeouts if I could. you know, I've dabbled in different things as he's gotten older, but for the most part, I really like Janet Lansbury's philosophy. She is an incredible resource for sort of gentle parenting, positive parenting. She has a lot of blogs and tips to help parents, but if you want it all in one place, her books are great, and you can listen to them audiobook style and then kind of like get like snippets of her parenting philosophy with that. So I definitely recommend that book for working on your child's behavior and giving you tools as a parent to deal with difficult situations. Okay, so I said this was not going to be your traditional parenting list, and here's why. I'm going to talk about some books on here that are not directly for parents. But you see, the thing is that people forget, parents are actually still people. Yeah, strange that. And so they behave like people, they just have a whole new responsibility. So there are a few books, and I have some of them with me actually physically now, that they're just staples. You have to read them, or at least something like them, because they will change your whole philosophy on life, which in turn affects your parenting. So let me stop waffling. The first one, classic. I love this book. I recommend it to everybody. Mindset. Super easy book, super thin book to read, Carol Dweck. And you know, the concept, it's so simple. It's how you decide you want to live your life. Do you want to live in an abundance mindset or a growth mindset, as she talks about, or in scarcity? That's basically kind of what it boils down to. And then there's different sections. I think there's like mindset in business, with parenting, maybe in sport as well, if I'm remembering correctly. But it's simple, because we know that thinking positive thoughts, positive affirmations, dreaming big, which is like something that I really resonate with. I don't know, you know, why can't we do something? It's the same for parenting. It's the same for how I want to relay this information to my children. I want them to dream big. I don't want them to be limited in their mindset. I want them to be free in their mindset. So definitely really cool book to read. Not even cool, that doesn't even sum it up. Foundational, fundamental book that you have to read, Mindset by Carol Dweck. Then along the lines of expanding your mind, not thinking small, really retraining your brain, is a book that I've recently finished called Limitless by Jim Kwik. You might know him from social media, from I guess his website. He does a lot of courses on learning. He is all about speed reading, expanding your brain. He teaches stars how to like read their scripts and understand their scripts better. I mean, there's a quote from Will Smith about this book on here. So it's a very new book. I believe it's doing really, really well, and for good reason. I have listened to his podcast and read some of his stuff before, but it's so nice to have it all in one convenient place. And then he has bonus chapters on parenting and teaching your kids how to learn in a limitless way. So again, not your traditional parenting book, but so important, you know, like if you don't think like this, you're not gonna convey that to the next generation. And as I said, I want my children to think that they can do anything and be anything, and I want to continue to remind myself to let them be who they are. So these books help me do that. So before I became a parent, I used to read a lot of fictional books, maybe not a lot, but I used to read a lot more than I do now. And whilst that is really important, especially if you can't sleep and you need to go to sleep, I found myself really searching for answers. I think one of the things that being a parent shows you is how your children are reflecting back to you. And you know, when things really bug you, often it's triggering stuff inside you that isn't resolved, that hasn't healed, that you need to deal with. So this leads me to, this led me to really search for more personal development style literature and resources. And so one of the ones that I really enjoyed is not really a book, it's actually an audio series. And this is by Robbins. And I just want to make sure I have the right name. And it's called Take Control of Your Life. And basically, it was an audiobook that was released on, I think, 4 or 5 coaching sessions between her and different people. So she's a life coach, she's a public speaker, I think she's one of the most famous or most, one of the most well-known female public speakers. And she just I don't know, she's just used her life and gone through the struggles that she has to really help other people see what's going on for them. So I just remember listening to this audiobook and just taking a lot of wisdom and knowledge from each person that she spoke to. Some were parents, some were not. She's a parent of 3 children, so she understands from a parenting perspective where things are. And it's nice to have someone who has older children, so more parenting experience, multiple kids, all that kind of stuff, trying to balance career and her family and her marriage and everything. It's nice to have that kind of parenting mentor, and that's kind of how I view Mel Robbins. She just kind of cuts through all the BS and gives it as it is, and it's really, really helpful. So I would definitely recommend listening to that and taking control of your life with that. It's really, really good. I recommended it to a lot of friends, and I feel like they found a lot of value in it too. Then another self-helpy development book that I really enjoyed, again, I listened to it on Audible, so it's like a story, is by Rachel Hollis, and it was called Girl, Go Wash Your Face, or Girl, Wash Your Face, something like that, which I thought was a really strange title. I'm like, what's going on here? She's also a parent, so I think it definitely applies. You know, it's all in the context of having kids and that kind of thing. And she takes us through chapters, or she takes the reader through chapters of her life and discusses different elements of relationships and parenting and struggles in her marriage and struggles in her faith and all this kind of stuff, struggles in her business. And I guess the message is like, you need to just pick yourself up and keep going. And I really enjoyed her book. I know other people who did as well, and I think it's a great non-traditional parenting book, but again, it helps you get in the mindset that you need to be a productive person, to see what's possible, to see how people overcome these mental hurdles, because we all have them. We all have these mental blocks that in the moment just seem like the end of the freaking world, and you don't know how you're going to get through them. But having positive role models that show you their struggle and how they did it just helps your subconscious, at least helps mine. I believe that it's possible to come through the other end better and stronger and a better parent overall. Okay, back with the super unconventional. This is not a parenting book in the traditional sense, but considering that I'm filming this in June of 2020, when the world is very uncertain and I am on the verge of potentially homeschooling my 5-year-old who's going to go into kindergarten, I needed resources, man, and I should make a whole separate video about this. I did talk about this particular book in a video, but this is called Learn to Read. And the reason I mention this is because I found myself having conversations with my friends and colleagues and talking about this a lot, and like how to teach a child to read. I have no idea. I'm not a teacher in the traditional sense, right? But if you need a resource which is like super easy and tells you how to teach your child to read, this is a great, really high quality book. And my son really enjoys it, and I think that's part of the charm for sure. But it also, on a deeper level, reinforces that you can do this. Like if you needed to teach your child how to read, like if we're in a situation where parents are going to be homeschooling their kids, oh my God, like then, you know, you need resources, and this is a great book for that. And I think it's just helped my parenting, so I wanted to put it in there. Okay, I know it's a little unconventional, but. And then bonus book, because I haven't actually finished it yet. If you watched my nighttime routine video, you will see that I'm reading this book called The Conscious Parent by Shefali Tsabari. Dr. Shefali, I'm sorry about that. I don't know how to say your name properly, but this, you know I already love it. I haven't read that much yet, but she is so well known in sort of the gentle parenting movement. This book is old now. I think it was written in 2010. I have her other one, which is called The Awakened Family. Haven't read that yet, but I am slowly getting back into reading. I really want to make it a habit again, and I need to be reading to help me through this next phase of my parenting journey with my kids. But I definitely think this is something that expecting parents should read as well, because it talks to your philosophy, or one's philosophy of parenting, and letting children be who they are, not transferring your desires and your dreams for yourself onto them, because they, you know, it's like that famous Oprah made this famous, but this is not her quote. It's from the Dalai Lama, that children are not of you, they come through you. And I really believe that. You know, we're all just walking around, little bodies. We're all bodies walking around with a spirit inside of us that we're just manifested into this body as a human. So that's a kind of a part of what this is. It's like, who is your child and how do you get to know them and how do they become your greatest teacher, right? Because that is what they're there for. Well, that's one of the reasons, I believe, anyway. So yeah, definitely recommend this book and I will get back to you. I also will leave a list in the description box of books that I am still planning to read which relate to parenting, if that's something that's interesting to you, because obviously this is an ongoing journey and you know, it never ends, we never stop learning. Also remember that I don't necessarily take absolutely everything that each of these books say as gospel or the be-all end-all, so you should just take what you need and leave the rest. Parenting is overwhelming and intimidating in and of itself, so don't feel like you have to study these books in order to have the magic pill to be the best parent. It's going to be a combination of all of these things, plus your own lived experiences, plus your own personality, plus your kid's personality, that's going to make you successful as a parent. So that is my top 10/11 books for parents, a little bit different, but I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know what books you've enjoyed as a parent or what books you think I should read next. I will also have listed books that I plan to read that have been recommended to me or that I've discovered in the description box below, as well as all of these books that I've mentioned so that you can quickly go and find them. Don't forget to subscribe to this video, give it a big thumbs up if you liked it. Let me know if it was helpful to have a kind of mini book review of these books. There are a bunch of these videos on YouTube, but I wanted to do something a little bit different, so I hope it was really helpful. Don't forget to make sure that you've clicked the notification bell, leave me suggestions of future videos down below, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!